Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dan's Blaine. We've got a pretty wild story to dive into today, something that's shaking up a tech world and honestly kind of turning the whole AI landscape on its head.
Yeah, this one's a big one.
So we're talking about a Chinese AI startup called DeepSeek. Now they've just released this language model. It's called R1. And get this, it's achieving results that are right up there with the giants, like OpenAI.
And they're doing it for way less money, too.
Exactly. That's what's got everyone so excited and a little freaked out, to be honest.
Yeah.
To help us unpack all this, I've got AI expert Lily with us.
Let's look at this.
So Lily, let's start with DeepSeek. Who are these guys and where did they even come from?
Well, they actually started out as a hedge fund, believe it or not.
A hedge fund?
Really? Yeah, High Flyer it was called. But their ambitions went way beyond just playing the stock market. They were aiming for something much bigger. Artificial general intelligence.
AGI.
Wow.
So we're talking like the ultimate AI, right? A machine that can basically think and learn like a human.
That's the dream. Yeah, AGI that can tackle any intellectual task that a person can. Now, DeepSeek's R1, it's not quite there yet, but it's a pretty major step in that direction.
Okay, so then what exactly is R1? Break it down for us, non-AI folks.
Well, it's what we call a large language model, or LLM.
LLM. Got it.
Basically, it's an AI system that's been trained on a massive amount of text data.
I see.
And that lets it do some pretty incredible stuff like generate human quality writing, translate languages, even write different kinds of creative content. And it can answer your questions in a super comprehensive way. It's kind of like those chatbots we see everywhere,
Right.
but way more advanced.
So not just your average chatbot.
Okay.
I get that.
Yeah.
But how does R1 fit into this whole David versus Goliath narrative that everyone's talking about? You mentioned they did all this with limited resources, right?
Right. So DeepSeek built R1 on a budget that's tiny compared to what the big companies are spending.
How tiny are we talking?
Like around $6 million.
$6 million. That's it.
Yeah. It's nothing compared to the billions OpenAI and others have poured into their models. And to make things even tougher, they couldn't even get their hands on the most advanced chips because of those U.S. export controls.
So they had to make do with what they could get.
Exactly. They were working with Nvidia H800s, powerful, but not the absolute top of the line.
So they built this amazing AI model, basically, with one hand tied behind their backs.
Pretty much. And
Well,
that's why everyone's freaking out.
I bet. It's like suddenly the whole game has changed.
Yeah, everyone's asking themselves, do we really need to spend billions to create cutting-edge AI? Maybe not.
And I'm guessing that question didn't sit too well with some investors. What happened when the news about R1 hit the stock market?
Oh, man. Let me tell you, there was a bit of a panic.
I can imagine.
Nvidia, the company that makes those high-end chips, they took a record single-day loss.
Like, how much are we talking?
Almost $589 billion.
Billion. Wow.
Yeah, billion with a B.
That's gotta hurt. And it wasn't just Nvidia, right, Nate?
No, the whole tech sector felt it. The Nasdaq dropped over 3%, and the S&P 500 fell by 1.5%. Investors started to worry that those expensive chips might not be in such high demand anymore if companies can get similar results with less advanced hardware.
So DeepSeek kind of accidentally threw a wrench into the whole financial system surrounding AI.
Yeah, they poked a big hole in the idea that you need tons of money and the absolute best hardware to make real progress in AI.
It's like they're saying, hold on a minute. Maybe there's a smarter way to do this.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's talk about this other really interesting part of the story. DeepSeek decided to make R1 open source. Now, what does that mean for the future of AI?
This is where things get really fascinating. It's like they're giving away their secret sauce, their recipe for this incredible AI. It's a pretty bold move in such a competitive field.
Yeah, it does seem kind of risky when you think about it. So why do you think they did it?
I think they see it as a way to democratize AI technology. Make it more accessible.
Okay, so instead of keeping it all to themselves, they're letting everyone in on it.
Exactly. Now, smaller companies, researchers, even just individual developers can access R1 and use its power. They don't need the resources of a Google or Microsoft to do amazing things with AI.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool. It could really level the playing field, and we might see some amazing innovations coming from all sorts of places.
That's the hope. But of course, there are always two sides to every coin.
Right. There's got to be a downside.
Open sourcing something this powerful, it does raise some concerns about potential misuse.
I see what you mean.
It's like giving everyone access to a really powerful toolbox without necessarily knowing what they're going to build with it. Could be something amazing. Could be something dangerous.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility and all that. So how do we deal with that? How do we make sure we're using open source AI for good and not for bad?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a challenge that's going to require a lot of different approaches. We need ethical guidelines, responsible development practices, and maybe even some regulations to keep things in check.
It sounds like DeepSeek has really thrown a wrench into the gears of the whole AI world, forcing everyone to rethink how things are done.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. They've challenged the old model of AI development that relied on massive spending and keeping everything secret. And their success is raising some really interesting questions about where the field is headed.
So let's talk about that future. What are some of the big trends and implications you see coming out of DeepSeek's breakthrough?
Well, one thing that's clear is that cost-effective innovation is going to be even more important. Now, DeepSeek has shown that you don't need to spend a fortune to achieve amazing results in AI. I think we're going to see a lot more research focused on developing even more efficient AI models, exploring new algorithms and training techniques that prioritize performance without requiring a ton of computational resources.
So it's not just a race to see who can spend the most money anymore. It's about finding smarter and more sustainable ways to build AI.
Exactly. And this could make AI more accessible to a wider range of businesses and organizations, not just those with deep pockets. Imagine smaller startups, nonprofits, research institutions, all of them being able to use AI to solve real-world problems.
That's a pretty exciting thought. It could really democratize access to these powerful tools, and who knows what kind of amazing things we could accomplish.
But what about the big companies that are already dominating the AI field? How are they going to adapt to this new landscape?
Yeah, what's in it for them?
Well, I think the smart ones are going to see this as an opportunity, not a threat. They might start incorporating open source components like R1 into their own systems, creating hybrid models that combine the best of both worlds, the efficiency and accessibility of open source with the specialized capabilities of their own proprietary technology.
So it's not necessarily a winner-take-all situation. There's room for collaboration, and everyone can benefit.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see more partnerships and collaborations as companies realize that working together can lead to faster progress and more innovative solutions. And of course, we can't forget about the impact all this is having on the global AI landscape. DeepSeek's success is a clear signal that China is a major player in this field.
Yeah, we've been hearing about China's growing influence in tech for a while now, but this seems like a real game changer.
It definitely highlights how the balance of power is shifting. The U.S. has been the leader in AI for a long time, but DeepSeek's achievement, especially considering those export controls, shows that other countries are catching up and even surpassing expectations in some areas.
So it's not just a two-horse race anymore. We're entering a multipolar world of AI development, with new players emerging and challenging the established order.
Exactly. And that could lead to more competition, which can be a good thing for driving innovation. But it also raises questions about how governments are going to respond. Will they try to restrict the flow of technology even further, or will they embrace a more open approach that encourages collaboration and knowledge sharing?
It's like we're standing at a crossroads, and the decisions we make now are going to have a huge impact on the future of AI. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think we need to talk about another really important aspect of all this, the ethical implications.
You're absolutely right. With any powerful technology, there are ethical considerations that we need to carefully examine.
And those considerations become even more complex when you're talking about open source AI because it's inherently more accessible and less controlled.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key ethical challenges we need to be thinking about?
Well, one major concern is the potential for bias in AI systems. If the data that's used to train these models is skewed or incomplete, it can lead to biased outcomes. And that can perpetuate existing inequalities or even create new ones.
Right. We've already seen examples of this with things like facial recognition systems and other AI applications that have shown biases against certain demographic groups.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to make sure that the data used to train AI models is diverse and represents the populations they're meant to serve. And then there's the issue of misuse.
Like we were talking about earlier, the idea that open sourcing powerful AI could be like giving everyone access to a dangerous weapon.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. We need to think about how to prevent bad actors from using these tools for harmful purposes, like creating deepfakes, spreading misinformation, or even developing autonomous weapons systems.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the human factor. how we use it, how we control it, and how we make sure it aligns with our values and ethical principles.
Exactly. And that's where the open source aspect adds another layer of complexity. Because when you have a technology that anyone can access and modify, traditional methods of control and oversight might not be enough.
So we're in uncharted territory, both technologically and ethically. It's exciting, but also a little scary.
I agree. It's an incredible time to be witnessing these advancements, but we need to be aware of the potential consequences and work together to make sure that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
I think that's a great point, Lily. We've covered a lot of ground today, from DeepSeek's surprising breakthrough to the potential impact on the AI industry, the global landscape, and all the ethical questions we're facing. But there's still so much more to explore.
Definitely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll take a closer look at the future of AI. We'll talk about emerging trends, potential scenarios, and the big questions that DeepSeek's R1 has raised.
So we're back, and I gotta say, this DeepSeek story has really got me thinking about the future of AI. It's like we're on the verge of something massive, something that could change everything.
I know, it's pretty mind-blowing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So as we wrap things up here, I'm curious, what are your big takeaways from all this? What should our listeners be thinking about as they go about their day?
Well, I think the biggest question is whether DeepSeek's approach, making things open source and focusing on efficiency, will it actually lead to a more democratic and accessible AI landscape?
That's a good question. Will we see a surge in innovation from all over the place, or will the big tech companies just find a way to maintain their dominance?
Exactly. It's too early to say for sure, but I'm trying to stay optimistic. I think there's a real chance for things to change for the better.
Okay. I like that cautious optimism. So besides the democratization aspect, what else are you keeping an eye on? What other trends are you seeing in the AI world?
I think we're going to see a lot more emphasis on efficiency and optimization. DeepSeek showed that you don't need to throw a ton of money and computing power at every problem to get amazing results.
Right. It's not just about brute force anymore.
Exactly. It's about finding smarter, more elegant solutions. I think we'll see a shift toward developing more efficient algorithms and training techniques, ways to get more bang for your buck.
That makes sense. Especially when you consider all the concerns about the environmental impact of AI, all those massive data centers sucking up energy.
Exactly. Sustainability is going to be a huge factor moving forward. So I think we're going to see a lot more research and development focused on creating AI systems that are not only powerful, but also energy efficient and environmentally friendly.
Okay, so all this talk about efficiency and smarter algorithms, it makes me wonder, are we getting any closer to achieving true AGI, artificial general intelligence?
Yeah.
That's DeepSeek's ultimate goal, right?
It is, but honestly, I think true AGI is still a long way off. R1 is impressive, but it's not there yet. True AGI would require a level of cognitive flexibility and problem-solving ability that goes way beyond anything we've seen so far.
So we're not quite at the singularity yet.
Not quite. But who knows, maybe DeepSeek's approach with its focus on efficiency and generalization could help us get there eventually.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But hey, that's a conversation for another deep dive.
Definitely.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what's your final takeaway from this whole DeepSeek story? What should our listeners be pondering as they head out into the world?
I think the main takeaway is that the AI landscape is changing fast, and in some pretty unpredictable ways. DeepSeek's emergence is a reminder that innovation can come from anywhere, and that the old assumptions about how to develop AI are being challenged.
Right. It's not just the big players anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And this is both exciting and a little bit scary. It's a time of great opportunity, but also potential risk. We need to be having serious conversations about how to navigate this new era of AI and make sure it benefits everyone.
Well said, Lily. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So remember, folks, the future of AI is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play in making sure it's a future we can all be proud of. If you want to learn more about DeepSeek R1 or any of the other topics we've discussed today, head over to our website at www.dansplain.xyz for all the latest episodes, articles, and partner products. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep dansplaining the world around you.